Well, hey everyone, welcome back for episode one. This is our second recording. We began with episode zero. This is episode one of Luminous by Nature. My name is Forrest Wilson, and I'm here with Jeff Vander. Welcome, Jeff. Welcome, everyone. It's good to have you here.
Greetings, Forrest. Greetings, everyone. It is indeed great to be here.
So I want to presence with you all who are here listening. Our call was scheduled to start 40 minutes ago, and Jeff's just been so graciously present with me these last 40 minutes while I've been deeply breathing and feeling. I had a friend and someone who I love more than I can put into words share something with me this morning that was a lot for me. And Jeff, you were just saying one of the virtues of Luminous by Nature is that it's real. I feel very raw, and sometimes you just come into contact with things in life that can break you. And yeah, I'm in the broken open state right now. So just want to name that because I imagine it's obvious.
Oh, the light is obvious as well, and there's truth in the wholeness. I'm grateful that we can be in the space together and be real together, even, and there's no need to say even, I suppose, as we have um, big worldly explorations that we both love dearly.
Yeah. I know today is going to be a smorgasbord of explorations in a way. We've got a sampler in terms of topics we can explore. We've um, highlighted a few potentials. Stabilizing peak experiences to live from luminosity is one. Another one being what is civilizational well-being? And there's, at least one more. And one of those feels like, okay, in Luminous by Nature, we say the healed and awakened world is already here now. So how does the healed and awakened world relate with the grief and the sorrow and the tragedy and the pain and the confusion that comes with the human experience?
In the Caribbean, there is a festival called the Junkanoo, and I'm not particularly familiar with the details. However, I understand the essence to be a kind of celebration and going back to gather the parts of ourselves that maybe we've left behind or haven't been included somehow. That's what has been shared with me. And I love that. So I hope it's true. I feel that there is the opportunity to go back and collect the parts of ourselves that maybe don't perceive or know or hmm, really yet embody the healed and awakened world and bring these into the luminosity because and for sure they are also luminous by nature.
There, there's a really beautiful parallel exploration here of as for those of us who've done really good psychotherapy or healing work, even just meditative, contemplative, reflective practice, there's a process we go through in our maturation where we start to reflect on our history and go, is the story that I've been living in actually congruent with the experience that I have? There's this distinction between the stories that I have and the actual experience that happened. And then there's I define trauma as residual. It's residue, meaning there's leftover residual experience from something that happened in the past, meaning it's still happening, actually. Whatever happened previously is actually still happening in this moment. There's this residual experience that we're carrying around in the moment. And there's a fascinating exploration here about the parallels for us in our collective psychology. Of course, all of us as individuals are also collectives, And on a collective level, right, there's a moment that I feel very pregnant in our collective field. That this collective that I'm speaking about is humanity right now. Um, but when is the moment and what is the process? How do we begin to look back at our history as human beings for tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands? And if you take it back to Homo erectus, even millions of years and go, how have we been treating each other? What's the experience that we've had? And how are we going to be with our evolutionary history that's gotten us to here? And, that brings up all kinds of interesting questions about, yeah, what structures and support systems does humanity need to face itself, essentially? If all of us are one cell in the body of the superorganism of humanity that has a long evolutionary history, what's needed to support us transitioning into the next iteration of our unfolding, including welcoming home our history, living history.
Well, I have a lot of hope and confidence that the answer to the question is co-arising abundantly as the many healing modalities, trauma healing, for instance. There's a wonderful film called The Wisdom of Trauma, which really elevated within the collective awareness the causes of trauma, the wisdom, as in there are gifts, and we can heal and be stronger as a result of the journey. And and I know that you work extensively as needed with the shadow pieces when they come up, and that you're highly skilled, Forrest, in uh, supporting and creating containers that support the healing from this residual, ongoing wound that people may be experiencing. And so the answer is already here, just like the healed and the awakened world is already here, and we get to live it. And one thing that doesn't work is if we exclude the healing journey, and the integration of these elements from the light. In fact, the light is, in some sense, the container. In another sense, it is the radiance that bathes and um, yeah, like the salve that heals all.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting in we are right now launching our first Luminosity X containers. We have a consciousness acceleration program called Luminosity X, and we've got a one available through Luminous Labs for our community, and then we've also got a one for investors and high-level game changers. We're for the moment calling it Luminous Capital. We might change the name here in a moment. Um, but looking at the business landscape, I oftentimes find myself asking, in the world of AI and quarterly earnings reports, there's, presidential elections, the kind of late stage capitalist world, postmodern world that we're living in. There's oftentimes this feeling of trying to get somewhere so quickly, but not even knowing why necessarily, like not having really reflected on why is it we're trying so hard to get somewhere. Do we even know where that somewhere is that we're trying to get to and what it is that's promised to be there when we arrive? And it feels really real to use the virtue we're speaking about here to just name the this is luminous by nature. We're speaking from the healed and awakened world, and also acknowledging that there's many different types of experiences at play, many different types of realities that people walk around in, and I'm just feeling a lot of care for the spectrum of experience.
Again, it's the wholeness. and it's all welcome. And I have at times had the sense, even the knowing that the work that I do is mm, largely about, say, dialing up the frequency, dialing up the consciousness, and starting from a relatively high baseline of capacity. And what I've found is it doesn't matter how healed the person is, how awake the person is, there are bits that will come up, the nitty gritty will come up. And oftentimes, interestingly, it isn't necessarily in the personal psyche or self structure because of the oneness and the interpenetration. If something is ready to be healed in society, it will often come up through individuals who have already done a lot of work because we become available vessels for the kind of muck to be released. And I don't mean to be pejorative when I say muck. It's like the dense mud, which is also the highly nutritional base from which plant life can grow, lotuses can spring, enlightenment can flower. So
Yeah,
we hold the spectrum,
yeah,
and there is the beauty and there is the power.
yeah, yeah. And it takes it takes skillfulness and support and wisdom and sometimes guidance even to be able to go into the muck and contact the nourishment and nutrients that are in it without necessarily getting stuck and had, sort of taken over by it. Um, I've certainly had the experience, and I know others who've had the experience of. I had a period earlier this year of a couple of months where I just felt so called to sit basically all day, every day in meditation. I had a blindfold on, and I had these very intense um, experiences happening, real, just sensationally a lot of material, a lot of content, and no connection to it anywhere in my personal history whatsoever. I mean, there was no Forrest Wilson line to it. It felt like some external hard drive of collective karma got synced up into my system and just started being like, oh, here's something, someone, a location in consciousness that's available to process some extra data that's been pent up in the collective system, I guess you could say. So I know this experience in my own way.
And when there is the personal connection, that is powerful as well. Perhaps more powerful. I'm not sure we can say one is more or less powerful. In certain instances, though, when you have the felt sense, the lived experience, and you can connect with the pattern viscerally, that gives you a very strong lever to work with the collective pattern. And this connects with civilizational well-being. This connects with playing big, while playing very small in some sense. I'll put it in quotes because when we're working with our own journey and experience and our own healing process, and we do so very honestly with realness, then the healing expands far beyond what we're able to see. And someone somewhere, maybe in the future, will kind of pick it up. My sense is, however, the future is now. And when we do this work that you're describing, this is lifting humanity, and it is a big deal.
Well, and bringing it out to the collective level and the civilizational well-being level, I've been curious, speaking about the pace that we've been moving, I've wondered, for example, for I want to say 7 years now, I've wondered what would it be like for humanity to have a day of pause, right? Like we have these holidays every year for so many different things. What if everybody took a pause one day? I mean, all over the world, what if we all just took a pause and sat down and got quiet? It's like so many things in the world. I mean, it's like when COVID happened, right? Dolphins started showing up in the canals in Italy, and you could feel the earth starting to heal again. It was like, oh, the the inherent capacity that exists in all of our bodies, including our planetary body, is showing itself when we stop doing the things that make us sick. The natural, organic, innate healing processes kick online. And from a civilizational well-being perspective, it's a curiosity for me of what would it be like for businesses to have days of rest and for our civilization to have days of pause and stillness and silence and reflection and metabolization and these kinds of things.
Well, in theory, this is not a new idea. The idea of a Sabbath or a weekly day of rest goes back millennia. And some friends and colleagues have created 7 days of rest as an annual program for the very beginning of the year, the first 7 days of the year, which has the same intention that you're describing, only for an entire week of days. And wouldn't it be amazing if a lot of people dropped in for 7 days and paused?
I'm laughing at myself because I realize I'm sitting here going, it's been about 7 years I've had this idea, like I'm the first person who's ever had the idea. So I'm just having a little chuckle at myself. Um,
We can't overstate the importance of pausing, and it doesn't always have to be a new idea. And almost by definition, usually it won't be.
Yeah. Well, I have an ongoing kind of enjoyment of myself because I oftentimes can sort of frame things in a way where I make it sound like I'm the first person who's ever had an idea. And to date, it's been I'm not sure I've had an original idea to date. So it's just a kind of self chuckle. Yeah. Civilizational well-being. So I just feel like giving you this as a prompt, Jeff. Let me just say to you, civilizational well-being, and let you take it.
Well, first, I want to address the possibility that civilizational well-being might seem abstract. There's nothing more real than a healthy world that is sustainable. And it has been said that only reality and truth are sustainable. And we can leave the definitions of those words aside for the moment. I would offer that being real is being like you and I are endeavoring to be now, which is open, caring, and creatively enjoy and curiosity about what is. And then life will show us what is. Life will show us what is real and what is true. So therefore, no one has to be the uh, sort of the figurehead for reality and truth. In fact, I'd highly recommend that nobody try that. Doesn't usually work very well. When we engage with the realness of our own lives, as I was saying earlier, the effects are far more than we can imagine. And yes, we can do this together. So one of the functions of Luminosity X as a kind of consciousness accelerator is that we can come together and amplify one another and create awakened impact. And in the context of Luminous Capital working title, we have a working tagline, which is consciousness times capital, not consciousness plus capital, but rather consciousness times capital, because consciousness is a multiplier. A little more consciousness produces a lot more impact. Consciousness, when coupled with capital, has the ability to create impact in the ways that we can see and measure and experience in the world. And at this time, what is manifestly needed is evolution to the big systems of society, which have worked however well they've worked within a certain range of complexity. And scientists are saying, and we're experiencing subjectively, that life is more complex than it used to be, and our institutions can't keep up. So they're crumbling. And consciousness is what has the capacity to hold greater complexity. So if we're thinking about how to apply capital skillfully as an investment capital, also intellectual capital, there are many forms. If we're not coupling that with consciousness, we're creating simplistic solutions that aren't solutions. If we're coupling the capital with consciousness that can hold complexity, we can create solutions that are real solutions. And a real solution is a solution for all. There are no externalities in full consciousness. Everything is included. That's why we keep coming back to wholeness and the full spectrum of possibilities and experiences, from pain and trauma to the totally healed and awakened world. So when we dial up consciousness and connect that with capital, and in the context of financial capital, more is a useful thing. Uh, we can produce civilizational well-being faster, and hence the notion of an accelerator. So we're accelerating our own consciousness because that gives us the capacity to show up in the world usefully, beneficially, and we're accelerating system change, and it can't not include everything. So civilizational is not an aspiration that we can hope for hundreds of years from now. It has to be now.
Right, right. And it's for anyone listening to this show, I have been working with investors, billionaires, startup founders, Fortune 500 companies, public-private partnerships. I mean, building infrastructure around the world. I've been in the business landscape, finance landscape, um, create new things for the world landscape my entire life, quite frankly. I mean, certainly my entire professional career. And the thing that can be somewhat maddening for people who wake up out of conventional business consciousness is I want to start investing in wellness type projects. And then you realize, wait a minute, all of these things that we're investing in the wellness space are just treating the symptoms of the Jeff, give me a word here of the world. I'll say the symptoms of the world, modern existence. How about that? The symptoms
Sure.
of modern existence. And so I have people come to me all the time and say, what do we do, Forrest? Right? It's like we're addressing things on the tree branch. We're not addressing things at the root. And and by doing this, we're sort of continuing to feed the beast in a way where, um, you can actually use a lot of wellness practices and protocols and wellness consciousness to continue to propagate a really unhealthy lifestyle. For example, you can use biohacking techniques to minimize the effect of over drinking alcohol and these kind of things. And there's all kinds of ways that this happens at a civilizational level. And so going to the root, going all the way to consciousness, invites the recreation of our entire neuropsychosomatic, relational, kinesthetic, financial, cultural, emotional, institutional experience. And that's the work that we're doing with Luminosity X. That's the work that we're doing with Luminous by Nature, Luminous Capital, in Luminous Labs. We're inviting people to come all the way to the root, to go all the way, to come all the way home. And from here, we can allow ourselves to be resourced and also recreated from the luminous nature that we are. Enough of us doing this work necessarily demands a new world to walk around in because everything we create is created from the consciousness it's created from. It's infused with and saturated with the consciousness it's sourced from. And so our journeys have taken us all the way. And now we're inviting other people to come along in the journey with us so we can change the ground that the socially constructed reality that we're all walking around interfacing with on a daily basis is resourced and manifested from.
Very well said. In terms of going all the way, this is available to all of us. And I would say it starts with a stance, a kind of energetic leaning into whatever all the way means now. And so all the way may evolve in terms of how it is experienced as we drop down to the root. We go all the way relative to our potential, and then our potential expands, our potential deepens. Eventually we hit a kind of bedrock. And and even then, you could say the work has just begun because there's a an impulse that arises to recreate. And so I think about going to the root and what that means in terms of the health of the branches. The nutrients that feed the leaves, they come up through the root system. So when we go to the roots, we have access to the highly nutritional food that our systems need. That is the fundamental well-being. And it isn't in any way disconnected from our expression in the world, from our personal lives, from our professional lives, from our communities, from our governance structures. All of that is fed from the deep well, the deep ground of being. And yes, I've witnessed you do this, and I've seen you share with many people the access to the fundamental ground of being and well-being. And so what I'm wanting to do here, so I'll just say it, is dispel any notion that this is something hard or something far away that we have to reach for and strive for and maybe never attain in this lifetime. Liberation is attainable in this instant.
Yes. Yes. There's a distinction here between I love that you said you spoke about I think you said stepping in or leaning in to use your words. I heard the word posture, but it's interesting because in a way we sort of um, collapse into the ground in a way, and at the same time we don't, right? Because if we collapse, that the posture of collapse, in my experience and in the experience of people I work with, it doesn't allow the the uprising of the primordial ground in the way that's needed for the recreation to happen. And so there's this um, again, this is where we oftentimes need support. Maybe we need to come to Luminosity X or find somebody who's gone through this journey who can be with us and really attune to the nervous system tone that we're in and the posture that we're in, not just posture physically, but posture um, energetically and in our the shape of our consciousness and be able to help us see, am I in the place where I'm, if anyone's watching this recording, yeah, you might just be listening on audio, but if you watch it, I'm doing this gesture of lifting my hands from my chest out open over my head. There's this opening, and I experience it two ways. One is giving ourselves over to, that's the more active one. I'm doing something, I'm giving myself over to, and then the receptive one is allowing myself to be taken over by. So there's two different ways we can experience it. One's an active giving ourselves over to, and another one's a receptive allowing ourselves to be taken over by that which we are, the luminous ground, the awakened ground that's here for us in this instant, as Jeff, you so precisely named. So there's oftentimes something like skillfulness. It's not the right word, but just a navigating of a finding of, here it is. This is it. This is what's happening. And it's fascinating, right? I mean, I've been doing trauma work with people for the better part of a decade now, and oftentimes when this process starts to happen, people run and they go, "Oh, this is a lot. This is intense. Like I'm having a lot of emotion." And I'm going, "No, no, no. Like this isn't emotion. This is you." This sensation, this intensity, this allotness, this is you. This is your soul. This is your light. This is the ground. Um, but I say that because at the beginning it can be very, very intense. So just navigating that sensation. We can be, if we've been coming out of the world of doing a lot of trauma work and healing work, we're sort of in this story that sensations that we feel are emotion or they're trauma or they're things from our past or whatever. And we might need a guide to help us see, or maybe hearing this podcast is enough to even just try. Oh, this sensation that I'm having, what is this? Oh, this is me. This is me.
I can appreciate why initially someone might feel some concern with the intense feelings, um, sensations, experiences. I know that there can often be a dissociation when there are traumatic experiences, especially early in life. And what you're inviting, or what I'm hearing you invite, is the remembering, the recognition that everything that you may have dissociated from is now coming back. This is the first point we were exploring during this conversation, bringing the parts of ourselves that we left behind back together. And at first, yes, it's a lot because we're vast. In fact, we're infinite. And when we say yes to what we are, that's the magic.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, if anyone is wondering, well, how do I apply this in my life? It gets very specific. When that creative impulse arises, the recreative impulse to transform circumstances, material and otherwise, it's as specific as it gets. And this is the joyful intersection I find in quote spirituality and living in the world, which are absolutely not separate things.
Right. That's right.
So we can build illumined businesses this way. We can build illumined partnerships with a significant other this way. There's actually nothing that can't be illumined this way.
And there's nothing that can be left out in the game here. I mean, there's no, it's a, I mean, it's a becoming one with the divine in every dimension of existence. I mean, it's nothing less than becoming one with the divine in every aspect of experience, in every uh yeah, harmonic of the cosmic symphony.
Yes. So I'm feeling that there's an invitation in all of this to play, to explore, to mm, energize and build together. And that could take the form of participation in a Luminosity X accelerator, whether that's with the Luminous Labs community, sort of like a community of communities, because you have several I know, or more in terms of the Luminous Capital um, cohort approach. And I just name these not to try to convince anyone. It's more about sharing the goodness, sharing that there are opportunities to elevate your life, our shared life, our civilizational well-being in an utterly joyful and impactful way. And I would say that the impact and the joy are correlated because the joy is correlated with consciousness. So when we find the joy and connect with the joy, and then we do the work is more powerful. And I sense that there are some new things under the sun, and that what we're bringing through together and in community is something new under the sun.
And from a meta perspective, to just double click on that, the invitation here is to experience newness in your life, right? That's what the Luminosity X containers invite, is the possibility that in our individual lives, in our relationships, in our business, and at a civilizational level, we can have new moments. We can have, wow, yeah, this is it. This is the experience I always felt like was possible, and it's actually happening. So I'll give it back over to you for a moment here, Jeff, and then I want to speak to all the invitations that we have.
Great. Well, I was reminded of a phrase, a future that is distinct from or different from the past. And of course, we're talking about the healed and awakened world now. That might seem like it's in the future because we're not yet universally experiencing it. And there may be parts of ourselves that are and parts of ourselves that are not. And this is the work to bring it bring the healing, bring the awakeness into the now in our experience, in our shared experience as a collective human. And so the future that is distinct from the past is the healed and awakened future now. And this is the work that we do together, which is why you're now going to speak to some invitations.
Absolutely. And just before I do that, I want to mention I led a I'm not sure I've shared this publicly before, but here we go. I did a workshop with Google last year, and we did this, what you and I are speaking about right now, with a team of AI engineers at Google. And um, one of the engineers there told me afterwards, he said, during this, we did a day-long workshop. He said, during this workshop, I saw light emanating from my body into my computer, out into the world and contacting humanity, contacting billions of people. And I ask myself, what if every single person who interacts with Google's products and services could experience more well-being in their life as a consequence? And that's enlightened business. That's what we're inviting in our exploration, is that everyone experiences more well-being, more goodness, more truth, more love, more beauty, and more connection to the truth of our own nature, the luminous by nature, just as a consequence of existing and interfacing with reality. That's the game that we're inviting you into here. So I can speak to the different ways you can engage with it, but I just want to name. I feel like giving it back over to you for one more moment, Jeff, and then I'll give the context that people can play in.
Well, what just sparked for me very briefly is if you're alive, you're luminous. And now is the time to recognize that and to live it. And when we do, like you said, there is the possibility of enlightened business, which will look and feel quite different from how we have known business in the past. Again, newness, newness, newness. And this newness is healing. There are some narratives, I'll say, in the collective, I don't want to focus too much on, but there are narratives that say there are cycles and they just go around and around. And, there's the disruption and then there's the rebirth and so on. And I would say at a certain level of consciousness, that cycle will repeat. As we lift the level of consciousness, it doesn't. So we're stepping into something very new here, and we can let go of our preconceptions about how hard it is to make change in the world.
That's right. So beautifully said. Yeah. Yeah, the answers are here. The world we want to live in is here. Uh, and we just want you here. And you already are. So, um, ways to play, ways to engage. First of all, there's a lot of free stuff that we have available. Jeff, you can go to Jeff's website, and we'll link that in the show notes for this page. I mean, Jeff, you just have treasure troves of goodness and luminous by nature radiance in your website. So I want to encourage people to go and find your work and just take in the transmissions and the goodness in what you've put together. I've also got, if anyone wants to experience a guided journey. I've got there's an online course for our emerging future that has meditations and activations in it. And there's a free guided meditative journey called Light Up the World on my personal website that you can go and do. And these, these are ways you can get started at very little entryway. The Light Up the World journey is a zero price offer. Jeff's website is a zero price way to engage. So these recordings are here. They're available for you. For the Luminous Capital Group, we've got retreats starting in September. So if you're interested, if you're an investor or a high-level game changer interested in exploring what would it be like to bring your community, resources, technology, infrastructure, wisdom, heart, and vision for the world into this luminous by nature field, into this awakened ground, and see what happens for you, you're invited to reach out to us. And we have online cohorts starting this week. We've got our first cohort 0 that we're launching and getting together now. So there's in-person events happening, online cohorts, and also Jeff and I are doing some 2-on-1 coaching with with folks. And then on the community side, we've got Luminous Labs. So there's an online Luminosity X container that we are spinning up in the moment. It's a 12-week journey for $500. If that's a problem for you, let us know. Um, we're envisioning having a few hundred folks go on this journey with us for the next few months. So if this conversation and this exploration is resonating with you and you want to come be a part of the growing community that's hanging out in this field, um, please reach out and let us know so we can get you on the list. And of course, we've been doing Luminous Labs all over the world. We just did one in Asheville and in Costa Rica. We're doing one in Mexico City in the next few weeks, and just got invited to do one in Hawaii. Uh, do just got invited to do another one in Asheville. So there's practitioners that want to be trained, there's centers that want to be built, there's pop-up gatherings that want to be happen or that want to happen. So if you're interested in coming to hang out in person and engage, let us know what you're wanting and where you are and whether you want to come join us somewhere or whether you want to have us come to you, we'll see what's possible and what's in alignment. A lot of good stuff happening, Jeff.
Yeah, I'll just mention you and I have both experienced quite an acceleration in recent weeks, and there have been moments where I have felt stretched, and the response has been yes, even double down. Is there more acceleration that I can say yes to? Is there more support? Is there more resource? Is there more luminosity that I can say yes to? And what I'm finding is, as fast as the flow goes, if I keep saying yes to everything that is available, um, then it works. So I say yes to whoever would like to dance with us in whatever ways that have been named, and perhaps others as well. Let's see where it leads.
Yeah. Yeah, so well said. I love that you name that. It's fun to be I mean, it's so much fun to be working together, Jeff. I tell you every single time we get off the phone how much fun I'm having. It's just so delightful and enjoyful, is that even a word? Enjoyful and and luminous, right? It is. We are having the experience that we're talking to you all about. So, yeah.
That's right. And I love and joyful, by the way. You talk about newness. That means new words, neologisms. And we don't have to be grammatically correct either, just to say.
Yeah, I was on the phone with someone yesterday who said the word feminine to me. She's come up with a new term to combine masculine and feminine, feminine. So it's fun to see what words evoke in us. And yeah, maybe this is enough for today. We'll let this be enough, and we'll put links in the show notes. These recordings go on LinkedIn and YouTube, and we'll very soon have them up on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and other platforms. So, of course, you can go to luminousbynature.com and find, um, get on our email list and get access to our recordings there as well. So, yeah. Yeah, I mean, before we close, I just want to tell you if you've made it this far with us, I just really want to share my heart with you. And, if I feel like if you've made it this far in this conversation and recording, it says a lot about you and who you are, and it very probably means that you're already a very deep yes to what we're exploring here. So I just want to recognize you and appreciate you and know that you're not alone. I feel you and um, yeah, it's good to have you here.
Much, much love, gratitude, appreciation for you, Forrest, and everyone who's with us in this way and always.
Thanks, Jeff. We'll see you all soon. Appreciate you.